Good day. Welcome to our first lesson in life sciences in 2022. We thank God for protecting you and bringing you back from your holidays. As I've always told you, whilst you guys were in grade 11, I've always been telling you that life science is a subject that is not difficult, but it's a subject that needs constant reading and then constant attention. If you are able to read constantly and pay attention to life sciences, it's one of the subjects that you will be able to ace it. You will be able to make or score your highest mark. Today we are going to start our life science lessons in grade 12 with DNA, the code of life. There are a lot of aspects that we are supposed or we must know by the end of this lesson. For example, you must be able to know what DNA is, the functions that it plays, where they can be located within the cell or within the cells of plants or within the body, and then how they help in transferring characteristics from parents to offspring. So whenever we talk of DNA, it is one of the nucleic acids that are found within the cell of living organisms. As we are here, or as you are in a class now, you can see that we are all human beings and we are found within the same species. What it means is that we will be able to interbreed to produce fertile offspring. But though we are in the same species, but you can see that physically there are differences in terms of appearance, in terms of your physical characteristics among you, the learners that are found in this classroom or in this lesson. There are some of you who are tall, there are others who are short. Some of you have got a broad nose, others have got pointed nose. Some of you are having a bulge or big eyes, others have got small eyes. There are people with what? Big mouth, whilst others have got small mouth. Some of you are dark in complexion, whilst others are fair in complexion. So all these are characteristics that are found within individuals that are found within the same species. Now, what brought about these characteristics? These characteristics, which brings all these differences within characteristics, are obtained by each individual from their parent. Though we are within the same species, but our parents are having different characteristics. And these characteristics are controlled by a genetic substance which is called a nucleic acid. So the differences in characteristics among individuals within the same species are controlled by what is called DNA. And the DNA helps to produce or to manufacture or to make what is known as a protein. And these proteins are the ones that control the physical characteristics of all living organisms, just as I have explained, with different characteristics in appearance among you learners in the class. So we say that the DNA serves as the code of life because it is the one that controls all the biological activities that are found within the body. For you to be short, it is controlled by what is called genes. These genes are part of what is called the DNA. And these genes, which are part of DNA, help to produce a specific protein. And that specific protein will then control your specific characteristics, such as maybe what? Height. In terms of your skin color, we have specific segments, which is called genes, which are found on a DNA, or which are part of the DNA. And these genes, which are part of the DNA, will help to produce a specific, a unique protein. And that protein will control your skin color, whether you will be dark in complexion or you will be fair in complexion. So we say that all the physical characteristics and biochemical reactions that occur in all living organisms are controlled by a biological substance. And that biological substance that controls all these characteristics is called what? A nucleic acid. So we say the nucleic acid occurs in all cells, which together with other organelles help in the proper functioning of the cell. So whenever you have a cell, when you were in grade 10, you were taught cell as the basic structural and functional unit of life. And within the cell, you were told that there are different organelles. Whenever we talk of organelles, we talk about living membrane-bound structures. Structures which are living, that are found within the cytoplasm of the cell, which are bounded by a membrane. So we have this DNA, which together with other organelles helps in the proper functioning of the cell. Since DNA is found within the cell, let us have or go through a basic review of the structure of the cell. A basic review of the structure of the cell. In grade 10, you were told or you were taught that the cell serves as the basic structural and functional unit of life. Meaning that for life to exist, it starts as a cell. Meaning one single cell or a single cell that have got all the living membrane-bound organelles within them or within it will be able to be alive. It will be able to live because it serves as the basic, that is the smallest part of life. That is why we have unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. A unicellular organism is an organism that is made up of only one cell, but it is able to perform all the 7 life processes. So we say that though that organism has got only one cell, but it is still what? Living. It is a living organism. So basically, we say that the cell, by definition, is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Now, whenever you have a cell, we have different parts of the cell. Let's go. Let me use this illustration so that I will be able to explain to you vividly. A cell is having some basic parts. Whenever you have a cell, we have what is known as the outermost membrane of the cell, which is called the plasmalemma or the cell membrane. So the outermost structure of a cell is called the cell membrane, as you were taught in grade 10. So we have our cell membrane, or it is also called the plasmalemma. I know you will be able to spell a membrane. Cell membrane. Alright, or it is also called plasmalemma. Now, inside the cell membrane, we have a jelly-like substance. The cell membrane is filled with a jelly-like substance. And that jelly-like substance is called the cytoplasm. So within the cell membrane, as we have here, inside the cell membrane, all the substance that are found within the cell membrane is called a cytoplasm. It is jelly-like. Now within the cytoplasm, we have organelles, different organelles that are found within the cytoplasm. Now, some of the organelles that are found within the cytoplasm include: one, we have the nucleus, which is very important because it is the nucleus that contains our code of life, which is our DNA. So we have our nucleus, which is found within the cytoplasm. Aside the nucleus, we have what is known as a ribosome, which is also one of the organelles that are found within the cell. Ribosome. When you were in grade 10, all these were discussed. Now, aside the ribosome, we have what is known as mitochondrion. Mitochondrion. And I know you will be able to spell correctly. This is just an illustration that I want you to know. Aside the mitochondrion, in plant cell, we have another organelle which is known as the chloroplast. The chloroplast. And this chloroplast is only found in a plant cell, not in an animal cell. So we have several substances that are found within the cell, that is the cytoplasm of the cell. So inside the cytoplasm, we have one which is called the nucleus. Now the nucleus is a double membrane bound structure. A double membrane bound structure. What it means is that the nucleus is surrounded by two membranes. It is having a structure like this, and these two membranes, we say that they are perforated, or it is interspersed by what is known as a nuclear pore. So we have this, which serves as our nuclear membrane. They are double bounded, meaning the membranes are double. Unlike the cell membrane, which is just a single membrane, the nuclear membrane is double bounded, meaning we have two membranes that surrounds the nucleus. So this one is called the nuclear membrane. Nuclear membrane. I'll be using this only to explain. So we have this as the nuclear membrane. Now you can see that there are some small spaces that are found in between the nuclear membrane. They are called the nuclear pore. Nuclear pore, as in P-O-R-E. Nuclear pore. Now inside the nucleus, just as the cell membrane is filled with a substance, a jelly-like substance, within which all the organelles are found. Within the nucleus, we also have a living bound substance that is found inside the nuclear membrane, and that one is known as nucleoplasm. Just as we have cytoplasm, we also have what is called nucleoplasm. So we have here nucleoplasm. And then within the nucleoplasm, we have a centrally small dense structure that is found within the nucleoplasm. That one is small, it is dense. That is found within the nucleoplasm. And that one is called nucleolus. Nucleolus. Remember, we are just making a revision. We are just revising what you were taught in grade 10. That is a basic review of the structure. So we have this one, which is called the nucleolus. Nucleolus. All right. Now, inside the nucleoplasm, which is found within the nucleus, we have some thread-like substances. Some thread-like substances that are found inside within the nucleoplasm. Some thread-like substances that are found within the nucleoplasm. Now, they come together and form what is known as what? Chromatin network. Small, entangled, thread-like substances that are found within the nucleoplasm. They form what is known as the chromatin network. Now, prior to cell division, this chromatin network will come together. Remember, at this point, they form something like a net. So we call it the chromatin network. But prior to cell division, this chromatin network will come together. They become condensed. They become shorter, and then they become visible. So when the chromatin network comes together, it becomes condensed, it becomes shorter and visible. Then it forms what is known as a chromosome. So within the nucleoplasm of the nucleus, we have the chromatin network that condenses, it becomes shorter and visible as chromosome. Now it is inside the chromosome where we have what is known as our DNA. So this one here, we have the chromosome. The chromosome. Chromosome. Now this chromosome here is where we have what is known as our DNA, which is the code of life. Now every chromosome has got two main parts or two main structures. We have what is known as a protein. Proteins that are found within the chromosome, and then the protein is surrounded by what is known as a DNA strand. Remember, DNA is double-stranded. So we have the DNA strand that surrounds the protein. So this structure here, where we have the protein surrounded by the DNA strand, gives us what is called what? A chromosome. So a chromosome consists of a protein, and the name of the protein is called histone. We have histone, which is the name of the protein that is found within a chromosome. It is called histone. So a chromosome consists of a protein which is called histone, which is surrounded by DNA strands. So two DNA strands surrounding a protein called histone gives us what is called a chromosome. So what you must know is that it is within these chromosomes where we have our DNA. And this DNA serves as the genetic material because it is within the DNA where we have segments which are called genes. And these genes are the one that helps to transfer characteristics, genetic characteristics from parents to offspring. So that is how it is. We have our nucleus. You must be able to draw and label. So we have our nucleus, which consists of, we have the nuclear membrane, which is double bound. We have inside, we have what is called the nucleoplasm, and then between the nuclear membrane, we have what is known as the nuclear pore. And then inside the nucleoplasm, we also have a dense a spherical structure, which is called the nucleolus. Also within the nucleoplasm, we have what is known as a chromatin network, which condenses and forms what is known as what? A chromosome. And the chromosome consists of what? DNA strands. Chromosome consists of DNA strands and a protein, which is called what? Histone. So a histone together with strands of DNA forms what is known as our chromosome. So basically, that is the illustration with regards to the organelles that are found within the cell. Now, after that, we have what is known as a ribosome. But before then, let's look at the functions of the nucleus. Remember, I said that the nucleus contains the chromosome, and inside the chromosome is where we have our DNA, and the DNA serves as what? The genetic material that helps to transmit characteristics, inherited characteristics from parents to offspring. Also, it is this nucleus that controls all the activities of the cell. It is the one that controls all the activities. So for the cell to be alive, it is as a result of the presence of this what? Nucleus, because it is the nucleus that contains the chromosome having the DNA. So it is the nucleus, one, that controls all the cell, the activities of the cell, and two, the nucleus also contains the chromosome, which consists of the chromosome, and the chromosome contains a genetic material which is called gene that helps to transfer characteristics from parents to their offspring. All right, and then we also have what is called a ribosome. A ribosome is one organelle that is also found within the cytoplasm of the cell. It is a small, dense, spherical what? Organelle. It looks something like, in reality, you see it as dots, small structures that are found sometimes closer to the nucleus. And if we have endoplasmic reticulum, some of these ribosomes will be attached to some of the endoplasmic reticulum so that it forms what is known as a rough endoplasmic reticulum. So it is spherical, dense spherical structures that are found within the cytoplasm, sometimes attached to an endoplasmic reticulum to form what is called a rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now, when you observe it or when you magnify it, it looks, in appearance, it is having an appearance like that, like this. That serves as the structure of a ribosome. Now, this ribosome is found within the cytoplasm. It is within these ribosomes where proteins are manufactured, where proteins are made. So we say that this ribosome serves as the site for protein synthesis. The site for protein synthesis. Why? Because we have what is known as a messenger RNA. Relax, we will get to that point. The messenger RNA, when it is produced within the nucleus, it moves out from the nucleus through this nuclear pore, and then it gets into the cytoplasm. When it gets into the cytoplasm, the messenger RNA then attaches itself. It finds a ribosome and it attaches itself to a ribosome. So let's say this one is our messenger mRNA. Messenger RNA. So the messenger RNA will attach itself to a ribosome. And within this ribosome is where the protein will be produced. So in terms of function, we say that the ribosome serves as the site for protein synthesis. Then we have what is known as the mitochondria. the mitochondrion is a spherical or a sausage-shaped structure that are found within the cytoplasm of the cell. It is also bounded by a double membrane. Now, it is within this mitochondrion where energy is produced in the cell. So we say that the mitochondrion serves as the powerhouse of the cell. Now, when you have eaten as an organism and the food gets into the cell, there is what is known as cellular respiration. And during cellular respiration, there is the release of energy. So the release of energy from the food that you have eaten comes from this specific organelle, which is called the what? The mitochondrion. Now, within this mitochondrion, we also have a DNA. We also have DNA. So let's get where we can find DNA. We have DNA within the nucleus, and then we also have DNA within the what? The mitochondrion. All right. And then we also have chloroplast. Chloroplast is a green pigmented organelle that is only found in plant cells. In animal cells, chloroplasts are absent. In plant cells, there are large amount of chloroplasts, mostly in the leaves and then within the shoots of a young developing seedling. It is the presence of this chloroplast that gives the leaf its green color. Why is this chloroplast important in our discussion? As an organelle, it also contains a DNA, our code of life. So let's get the most important thing that we need to see here. We have these organelles, the nucleus, we have ribosome, we have mitochondrion, and then we have what? Chloroplast. The reason why the nucleus is important is because it contains what? DNA, our code of life. We also have our mitochondrion that also contains what? DNA. And then we also have our chloroplast that also contains DNA. So these are the three main locations of DNA where DNA can be located. We have the nucleus, we have in the mitochondrion, and then we have in the chloroplast. Now, the ribosome is also important. Why? Because it serves as the site, the area, the point where proteins are manufactured. So the ribosome is also important because it serves as the site for the production or manufacturing of proteins. So basically, these are the organelles that you need to know as far as DNA is concerned. So let's come back after our illustrations. Let's come back and then continue with our discussion. So we are looking at the review of the basic structure of the cell, as I've already explained. So we say that the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. The cell is made up of a jelly-like structure called the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm is surrounded by a cell membrane or plasmalemma. The plasmalemma is another name for the cell membrane. So what is the function of the cytoplasm? When we were looking at our illustration, we say that it is inside this cytoplasm where all these organelles that we've talked about are what? Found. So in terms of the function, we say that it serves as the house. It houses all the organelles that are found in the cell. So in terms of function, we say that the cytoplasm contains or it houses organelles such as the ribosome, the nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, etc. There are several organelles that are found within the cytoplasm of the cell. And then all chemical and biochemical reactions occur in the cytoplasm. An example of a biochemical reaction is the production of what? Or manufacturing of protein. And I explained that it is within this cytoplasm where we have this organelle, which is called the ribosome. and it is the ribosome that serves as the site for protein synthesis, and the ribosome is found within the cytoplasm. So all chemical as well as biochemical reactions occur within the cytoplasm. That is why it is jelly-like, because it contains high amount of water. And for chemical or biochemical reactions to occur, it occurs in the presence of water. So let's look at the functions. It contains or houses all organelles within the cell, and then it serves as a place or an area where all chemical and biochemical reactions occur in the cell. Now let's move on to ribosome, of which I've already explained. We say that the ribosomes are small spherical structures found in the cytoplasm. Small spherical structures which are found in the cytoplasm. Now, what is the function of the ribosome? I said the ribosome serves as the site for protein synthesis. The site, the area where proteins are synthesized, where proteins are produced, where proteins are manufactured. All right, and then we also have the nucleus. The nucleus. You see that the nucleus is a spherical organelle which is bounded by a double membrane called the nuclear membrane. So just as I did the illustration, I said that the nucleus is surrounded and bounded by a double membrane, and the name of the double membrane is called what? Nuclear membrane. And this nuclear membrane is perforated by pores, which is called the nuclear pore. So we have our pores that are found within the nuclear membrane that surrounds the nucleus. All right. So you see that the nuclear membrane is perforated by pores or holes, which are called the nuclear pore. Inside the nucleus are chromosomes that contain the hereditary material called DNA. So I explained to you that within the nucleus, we have what is called the nucleoplasm. Inside the nucleoplasm, we have what is called the chromatin network. And the chromatin network will condense and form what is called the chromosome. And the chromosome contains what is called what? The DNA, which serves as what? The nuclear material or the hereditary material, because it is the DNA containing genes that helps to transfer or transmit characteristics from parents to offspring. And I explained that every chromosome is made up of a DNA surrounding a protein, which is called what? A histone. All right. So we say inside the nucleus are chromosomes that contain the hereditary material called DNA. A small dense structure called the nucleolus is found centrally in the nucleus. So when you come to this end, I say that we have a small dense spherical structure here which is called the nucleolus, and this nucleolus is found within the cytoplasm of the nucleus. So basically that is the structure of the nucleus. Now what is the function, or what are the functions of the nucleus? We say that the nucleus controls all the chemical and biochemical reactions of the cell. So for every reaction to occur within the cell, it is controlled by the nucleus, because it is the one that contains the DNA. DNA replication occurs in the nucleus. Whenever we talk of DNA replication, remember I explained that we have this one which is called what? The chromatin network. And prior to cell division, meaning before the cell will divide, this chromatin network will condense, meaning it will come together. It becomes shorter and visible as what? Chromosomes. So when there is the formation of this chromosome, the chromosome is made up of what? DNA. So before the cell will divide, the DNA will have to replicate. Whenever we talk of replication, we talk about making exact copy or replica of a substance. So the DNA replication means that the DNA that is found within the nucleus will make copies of themselves. So during DNA replication, it occurs within the nucleus of the cell. All right. And then the last function, you see that the nucleus contains the hereditary material called genes. And remember, the genes are found in the DNA. the genes together are bound on the DNA. Alright, so we say that the nucleus contains the hereditary material called genes. Genes are bound on the chromosomes. Remember, chromosomes are made up of DNA and a protein called histone. So whenever you have a chromosome, for example, if I have this as my chromosome, remember chromosomes are double-stranded. So if I have this as my chromosome, I can separate them and make them what? Double strands like it. Between this one is a DNA, this one is also a DNA strand, So on the DNA strands, we have what is known as what? Genes. We have genes that are found on the DNA strands. So we say that genes, which are hereditary materials, they are bound on chromosomes. And chromosomes are made up of what? DNA strands and a histone. So the actual gene is basically found on the DNA strand that is found within the chromosome. So basically, that is the function of the nucleus. And we have to know that when you actually define an organelle, they are the living membrane-bound structures which are found in the cytoplasm of a cell. Organelles are the living membrane-bound structures which are found in the cytoplasm of the cell. And I gave you examples. For example, we have ribosome, which is an organelle, and you can see as it is found in this cell. We have the nucleus. The nucleus is also an organelle. We have our mitochondria. It is also an organelle. We have endoplasmic reticulum. You can see that here we have rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then we have smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough because you can see that there is attachment of some black dark small spots, meaning that some of the ribosomes get attached to the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and it forms what is called a rough endoplasmic reticulum. But the reticulum without the ribosomes, they are still called smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Alright, so that is the basic structure of the cell. That is the most important thing that we need as far as our DNA is concerned. Alright, so here let's move on to nucleic acids. Nucleic acid. Remember we said that DNA, or we talked about a biological substance that controls the characteristics of all living organisms, and we said that it is called a nucleic acid. And I explained to you that a nucleic acid is a substance that produces or manufactures or synthesizes what? Proteins. It helps with the synthesis of proteins, so that the proteins that are synthesized will help to control specific characteristics in an organism. It will help to control a specific characteristic in an organism. Alright, so by definition, we say that nucleic acids are organic molecules that control the synthesis of proteins in all living cells. Organic molecules, and what is the function? Controls the synthesis of proteins in all living cells. So for a cell to be living, for it to be able to function, it must have what is called what? A nucleic acid. So that the nucleic acid will help to produce or synthesize a protein, and the protein will help to control characteristics that are found in an organism. They store and transfer genetic information. The nucleic acids store genetic information and they help to transfer genetic information from one organism to another organism. So let's get the types of nucleic acids that we have. Basically, there are two main types of nucleic acids. We have the first one, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, which is called DNA, which is our code of life. Deoxyribonucleic acid, which is DNA. And then we also have ribonucleic acid, which is what? RNA. So these are the two types of nucleic acids. DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, and we have RNA, which is ribonucleic acids. Now, each of these nucleic acids, or every nucleic acid, consists or is made up of what is called a nucleotide. Just as we say that the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life, when we come to the nucleic acids, we have what is called a nucleotide. And the nucleotide also serves as the basic unit or the monomer for every nucleic acid. So when you have a nucleotide, by definition, we say that it is a unit or a monomer of a nucleic acid. So assuming I have DNA. Remember, I said that the DNA is made up of what? Genes. Now, these genes are made up of what is called nucleic acids, which is having some specific structure and parts. So, for you to have a DNA, the DNA must consist of a strand or a chain of each of these nucleotides, so that it comes together and then it forms or it gives you what is known as your nucleic acids. So that is the types, or these are the types of nucleic acids. Now let's take the first nucleic acid, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Where can we locate or where can we find DNA? When I was explaining the basic structure of the cell, I said that the nucleus is important as an organelle, the mitochondrion is important as an organelle, the chloroplast is important as an organelle. Why? Because they serve as the area or organelles within the cells where we can locate or where we can find what? DNA. So location of DNA, we have our nucleus, we have our mitochondrion, and then we have our chloroplast. And you must know that the DNA that is found within the nucleus is called nuclear DNA. DNA that is found within the nucleus is called a nuclear DNA. And then DNA that is found within the mitochondrion, it is called mitochondrial DNA. Mitochondrial DNA. And then a DNA that is found within the chloroplast, it is called chloroplast DNA. So these are the three main locations of DNA. The first one, we have our nucleus, we have our mitochondrion, and then we have our what? Our chloroplast. These are the three main locations where we can get our DNA. All right. So we see that DNA is located or found in the nucleus of the cell in the form of chromosomes. They are made up of genes. And the DNA found in the nucleus is called nuclear DNA. You must mind your spellings. We have nuclear DNA. And then we have, it can also be located inside the mitochondrion. And this type of DNA is called mitochondrial DNA. And then it can also be located in the last organelle, which is called the chloroplast of some eukaryotic cell. Why is it some eukaryotic cell? Because chloroplast is mostly found in plant cell and other microscopic organisms. For example, mosses, euglena, paramecium, and other organelles. So it is basically found in eukaryotic cells. All right. DNA that is found outside the nucleus of a cell is termed as extranuclear DNA. So in an exam, you can be asked to define, or you can be asked, what is extranuclear DNA? It is a DNA that is found outside the nucleus of the cell. So if we have these three locations of DNA, nucleus, mitochondrion, and then chloroplast, and we are saying that extranuclear DNA is a DNA that is found outside the nucleus of the cell, then can you give me some examples of extranuclear DNA? Extranuclear DNA, DNA that is found outside the nucleus of the cell. So we have DNA that is found in the nucleus. That is called what? Nuclear DNA. Aside this nuclear DNA, there are two other places or locations of DNA. We have the mitochondrion, and then we have the chloroplast. Mitochondrion is not in the nucleus. Chloroplast is not in the nucleus. So the DNA that is found in the mitochondrion and DNA that is found in the chloroplast are termed as what? Extranuclear DNA, because they are the DNA that are found outside the nucleus of a cell. All right, so let's look at some terminologies here. We have what is known as what? Chromosome. And I explained that chromosome is made up of what? A DNA that is coiled around a protein which is called histone. So by definition, we say that chromosomes are long strands made up of DNA and a protein called histone. Chromosomes are long strands made up of DNA and a protein called histone. And then we also have a gene. Remember I said that on a chromosome we have DNA, and the DNA is made up of segments, portions, which are called genes. They serve as the hereditary material. They control the specific characteristics, because it is the gene that will help to code for the production of a specific protein, and that protein will control a specific characteristics. For example, if you are having a pointed nose, pointed is the characteristic. So the pointed nose, your nose being pointed, will be controlled by a gene, and that gene will code for the production of a specific protein that will control your pointed nose. If you're having a flat nose, then the gene will code for the production of a specific protein that will help to control your flat nose. So we have a gene, which is a specific sequence of a DNA nucleotide which contains the code or information for making a specific protein. A gene is a specific sequence of a DNA nucleotide which contains the code for making or information for making a specific protein. And then we also have a histone. We said that chromosomes are made up of DNA strands and a protein called histone. So a histone is a type of protein that is found in a chromosome. Histone is a type of protein that is found in a chromosome. All right, guys, we are going to end here as our first lesson, and then we are going to continue on next time. So you take this as your homework, you do it, and then you submit it. All right, you can write as I dictate your homework. 1, you have to define the following terminologies. Define the following terminologies. Define the following terminologies. The first one is nucleic acid. What is nucleic acid? Define the following terminologies. Nucleic acid. 2, organelles. Organelles. 3, nucleotide. Nucleotide. 4, extranuclear DNA. Extranuclear DNA. And the last one, gene. Gene. So that is your homework. You write it down, and then you do it, and you submit for marking. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for this lesson. Thank you.